It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio, flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome on Facebook and Instagram at The Mike Nowak Show and at Mike Now on Twitter.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes. And true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in demand.
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
Well, good planets are in demand, right?
And good morning. And,
Good morning.
Okay, I always see Kathleen, when I see Kathleen wandering down the stairs, are we okay?
I didn't get any sound for the video, for the intro video.
Oh.
Whether it's on now.
Oh, wait, you didn't have sound?
I heard sound coming through on Facebook.
Okay, good. Everybody
And
else
we're
heard
also
sound,
missing
Kathleen.
the whole thing that says
So,
the Mike Nowak Show on screen.
you know, it's one of those mornings where we're going to do, it's going to be the technical fun. Yeah. I mean, Peggy's camera decided, oh, you got a pumpkin.
There you go. We'll add some color to the show. Right
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
And Bruce says we're competing with the NFL this morning. What?
Oh,
Why
yeah,
would they
because
do
they're,
football in the
I
morning?
believe they're playing in London.
So who's watching that?
I know. Nobody cares, Bruce. Just telling you, if you want to go watch the NFL, go watch the
and Dan
NFL.
Costa says he hears us fine on YouTube. Yes, thank you, Dan.
All right, great. So make sure we're all there. I mean, this is. Are we good? Okay, Kathleen's saying we're good. See, this is.
Hey everyone, welcome. This is a radio show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's live. It's this is what we do. We stream live, and half the time we don't know whether it's going anywhere. So, it's. I live in mortal fear of Kathleen walking through those doors over there when I'm doing this because
Okay.
it means one of two things. Either she's come to warm up my coffee, which I really appreciate, and thank you for that when you do that, Kathleen, or it means something technical bad is happening, and she's come down to tell me that we're being heard on Jupiter, but we're not being heard in Skokie.
And our pictures are upside down. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, or your camera isn't working on your computer, but your microphone is. It's all that matters.
Yeah, it's actually my system microphone. Go figure. I don't know. We'll deal with it later.
Oh, wait, your other microphone isn't on?
No, because I have to have the external camera plugged in.
All right, so that means I think I'm going to boost you just a little bit here.
Hey, folks, just go fill your coffee while we're sorting this out.
Yeah, I've only been tweaking this for the last half hour anyway, trying to make everything work. And
Good grief. I only rebooted my computer how many times? Whatever. Anyways, we have some wonderful guests waiting in the wings, and they don't need to listen to this.
Oh, yes, they do. It's part of the show. And I've got the robin here, so that's
Oh, wait a second.
uh-oh. We're going to have competing animals. Okay, there we go. Welcome to the show, everybody. So Bruce is going to do both. He's going to watch the football game. Thanks, Bruce. Just turn the sound down on the football game, all right? Just get it out of there. And we do have a great show today. Some wonderful guests. We're talking some gardening. And the Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards winners are here. We're going to show some videos. We're going to have some photographs. Those of you listening on the podcast, you need to go to our YouTube page, in which it's time to change the open to the show too, because we really focus now on YouTube and getting the signal out to YouTube. And we hope folks go to the Mike Nowak Show on YouTube and sign up for our channel, subscribe to the channel. It's really easy to do. And watch us there. So if you're listening on a podcast, we love folks who listen, because a lot of folks do listen on the podcast, and it goes out various places like WRWO Radio in Ottawa. It goes out to Lumpen Radio in Chicago. And that is so piercing. That thing is just so piercing. There you go. That's better. Like that. And I was just listening to Lumpen Radio this morning at 8 a.m. Sundays. That's when our show aired.
How did we sound?
We sounded wonderful. And it was our tour of the animal sanctuaries. And what kind of owl is that?
It's a snowy owl.
It's a snowy. Well, yeah, of course. It's very white. So those are the various ways you can hear the show. So you know what? I should just stop yammering here.
Yep. And while you're doing that, we'll say good morning to Zan. Good morning, Skeet. Good morning to Sue. Who else have we not said good morning to? Diana, who writes, quote, "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children." A proverb of unknown origin.
I like that. I like that a lot. And with that, let us bring in all of our guests. And you can see we have a ton of people on the show. So that means Peggy and I are in our little boxes up on the upper left-hand corner. And I hope that, and let me check just to make sure that, because I just set it up just before the show, looks like all the microphones went on. How about that? I'm amazed at my own prowess here.
You get a ding.
Yes. On our right is Renea Lyles from the UIC Nutrition Teaching Garden. And lower left is Akila Muhammad. And the Muhammads have a garden out in Bolingbrook, Illinois. They've done a sustainable landscape. We'll talk about that. And the two people on the right of the screen are Vicki Rosich and I can almost, it's my cheaters really don't help me very much. And Jean Arbetter, and you'd think I would have memorized their names by now because I've been talking to them for a couple of days, but it's all trying to get into my brain. Welcome everybody to the show this morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And these are all people who are doing different kinds of gardening. I'm very excited about the way it turned out, so that we have various gardens represented. As you know, Peggy and I are just a couple of the people behind the Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards. We have organizations like the Illinois Extension, Cook County, and I'm not going to remember.
We've got Shed Aquarium, Advocate for Urban Agriculture,
the Forest Preserve District of Cook County, the Park District, Flower and Garden Show, and others who have Chicago Community Gardening Association. A lot of folks who have helped us with this. And this was we started in 2017. This was the 5th year. I learned something yesterday that I did not know, that in various incarnations, the UIC Nutrition Teaching Garden has won 5 years in a row. I think you guys are the only ones who have made the cut for 5 years. So Renee, congratulations to you.
Oh, well, thank you. That's exciting.
And as you know, we started this in 2017. The idea was to pick up where the city of Chicago left off. They discontinued the garden, the Mayor's Landscape Awards is what they called them, gardening awards in the city, for no reason other than they could. Thank you, Rahm Emanuel, for dropping the ball. So we got angry. I got angry. And I said, if they won't do it, we'll do it ourselves. And that's always a bad thing, to do things in anger, because then suddenly you're wielding or running an unwieldy organization, and going out and judging gardens all over the city of Chicago. And we did that for 3 years. And then, of course, a pandemic hit. And last year we said, well, we're not going to be out in people's gardens because nobody knew if it was safe. We know now that it is much safer to be outside than it is to be indoors. So last year we started the 60-second garden video challenge, where we had people do 1-minute videos and send them to us. And then we continued it into this year because at the beginning of this year we really weren't sure again how things were going to go, how the vaccinations were going to roll out. I suspect next year we're going to be back in people's yards judging gardens in person, and I, for one, am really looking forward to that. But meanwhile, we've had these wonderful folks who have sent us their videos, and these are some of the winners this year. And I'm going to start in the lower right with Jean and Vicky, who are from the Imperial Towers Community Garden. And let's bring you guys in here and tell us a little bit. Jean, I'm going to have you start off. Tell us a little bit about the Imperial Towers Community Garden.
Well, Community Garden started 2 years ago, and then last year we had nothing going on, as you mentioned already. Vicky and her husband, Jim, and I and my wife, Martha, have the good fortune of living in a mid-century modern 29-story Twin Towers high-rise on Marine Drive overlooking Montrose Harbor. It was built in the early 60s. It's one of many. Its unique feature that I always loved is that if you look up and down Lakeshore Drive, virtually every building is smack up against the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. We have a setback and a front yard that's almost as gorgeous as our garden. The building we have what's called a rooftop garden, mm-hmm. Although it's not above the 29th floor, it's on the second floor.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my fault. I didn't realize your mic was going to go off when I did that. I apologize. Keep talking there, Gene.
So there's a picture of our lovely garden. What wound up happening when I landed in our building, when my wife and I landed in our building 20 years ago, I walked the area and there was this piece of concrete, several hundred square feet, that was just kind of laying there in the northwest corner doing nothing. And I looked at it and said, how about a community garden? Flash forward about 15 years, and we started the conversation. Our board of directors, which is usually pretty protective of common elements, got on board. I am actually a condo board member, which I guess speaks to my sanity a little bit, but so be it. There's a nice shot of the garden as well from the air.
And I got to show you this one. I have to show you this one because these two go together. That is a summer photo. And look at this. This is the winter photo. That's just remarkable, the way you guys covered everything.
So we actually got board approval to proceed with the concept because it's not on grade, but on an elevated concrete deck. We needed to have a load.
Oh boy, and I'm fine. Hold on, that's my fault again. I don't know why this is happening, but when I changed the
technology morning,
it is technology morning. But okay, talk about the weight bearing part of this.
So there was concern for 35 4x4 plots, not quite or about 1.5 feet deep, and the load that would place on the deck. The advantage here is that we hooked up with a brilliant young botanist, Mike Repkin, who some of you may know from Urban Habitat Chicago and connected with Omni Ecosystems, who has a medium that weighs, I think, something like a third or a fourth of what regular filling would weigh.
Wow.
So the load study showed that we were okay under any circumstances, which was nice. But we did wind up with this lightweight, high capacity, room for lots of rootlets, water retaining, kind of Miracle Grow item, not to say Miracle Grow.
Right.
Miraculous grow.
Miraculous grow, totally miraculous grow. And you can plant things with your fingers. I mean, you don't need tools or trowels. It's just very easy to work with. The results will be shown in some of the films and pictures.
And I would imagine that would encourage other gardeners as well, if the easier it is to do.
It is. We offered up 34 of the 35 plots the first year. We kept one as kind of a community plot that we wound up planting as a group effort. They filled up pretty fast. We wound up with garden. We're in a building, as I mentioned, it's 29 stories, 2 towers, 862 apartments, about 1,500 people. We have 35 plots now. We have about 54 gardeners. Some are couples, some are shared, then live in different units. So it worked out well. This year we had a little bit of attrition. Some people left, some people moved. There were people to fill in the spots almost immediately, and it's an exciting thing. Initially, we were hoping that we would get enough to sustain, and we did fill up the first and second seasons, which was 2019 and this year. Vicki and I have been co-chairs of the committee that puts this together. I was kind of the structure and get stuff past the board guy. Vicki is, as I've said umpteen times in meetings, the heart of this whole thing. And a much better gardener than I, although we did have, our first year, Martha and I we got kind of the daikon that ate Chicago. I mean, it was amazing. It came up out of our garden. It looked like a big pale zucchini. And then this year we just decided to go easy and threw out some prairie seeds and had just a little batch of 4x4 flowery things just for fun.
Yeah, you had a very beautiful garden. I'll show a photo of that in a little bit. But what's interesting, when I talked to both of you recently, Vicki says, "Oh, we couldn't have done it without Jean," and Jean says, "Oh, we couldn't have done it without Vicki." So it's kind of the way this is going. So what I would like to do is show the video, since this is the point of all of this. We will show your video, and then we come back. Vicki, you can explain a little bit about what we're seeing here.
The Imperial Towers Community Garden is a collective effort to enhance the natural beauty of our concrete urban setting for the enjoyment of its residents. This will be achieved through the individual plots and community growing spaces, with the purpose to bring fresh produce, herbs, and flowers, as well as learning opportunities to its gardeners and those who would like to participate. This will foster personal connections and additional garden space for all residents to enjoy through active gardening or peaceful observation. In the community garden, a rainbow has bloomed in a space once devoid of life. The garden has brought nature, color, and a sense of community to this space.
I'll offer one thing is that we were fortunate. We didn't plant the ivy wall, which kind of rivals Wrigley Field, but it was just there for us.
That's great.
So that north wall is just covered with ivy, and it's been just a wonderful addition to the whole thing.
And you have a seating area there too, so that's nice for the residences.
3 benches, which were actually donated as memorials to 3 different sets of people. And it's just wonderful. I mean, as I say, 54 gardeners are in and out of there a lot. We had an awful lot of wonderful, admiring traffic from the residents of the building and their guests this year as well.
And you can see the benches there, and it's a lot. And you accent things with a lot of containers there. So Vicki, tell me about what is it that. Did you have a lot of natural gardeners there, or did you have to provide instruction? How did this work? Because you've only done this for 2 years, and it's pretty remarkable. It's interesting. Jean talked about it's 15 years in the making, and then you do first year, and then you get wiped out by the COVID. You weren't doing anything, and now you come back for the second year, and it looks gorgeous.
Well, at the first year, we have about at least half the people here who are gardening that have never gardened before. They've lived in we have some people who are gardeners who've lived in the building since the early 60s when it was built, or 20 years, 15 years, so not had a natural yard.
Mhm.
So Mike came and did a lot of training and actually met with each individual person the first year and asked them what they wanted to grow and actually helped them map out their little 4x4 area, because you can grow things a lot closer together. So traditionally counting 6 or 12 inches wasn't necessary to be able to not get the roots to stick together. So we had a lot of educational opportunities the first year where we talked about growing. We met out on the deck as a group on every Sunday in May and early June. Mike would come and many of us would be down there and we would help each other. And I really loved the feeling of everyone going over and talking about how to help someone get started. Or when one of our gardeners had a watermelon growing, we would all go over like proud parents and stand over the plot and see how in this particular plot that you're showing, those are avid gardeners. They have a lot of very interesting flowers, some from Korea, some cooking, like a cooking vegetable herb garden. And
Mhm.
so some of our more seasoned gardeners would just naturally gravitate. But what was really special was it really defies all demographics. There's lots of different ages, from super young first time condo purchaser or renter to our more seasoned adults who are retired. And so everybody just talks to each other. There's a common element. We also have a deck crew, which helps to sweep and maintain the area. um, we maintain our area ourselves. So with sweeping and using natural products or just picking weeds, helping each other if we go on vacation to water. Really, the building provides for us a water source and a hose, and we pretty much self fund and
Mhm.
continue the rest of it. And the bench area, I think the one of the most rewarding things for me is when I see um, adults come down, perhaps with their physical therapists or our very elderly residents in wheelchairs. It's literally our boxes are ADA accessible, so someone can have their caregiver wheel them through in their wheelchair, and they can admire it, and they can touch some of the flowers or herbs and then smell
Mhm.
their fingers to get that fragrance
Yeah.
that
Nice
perhaps they
sensory
don't in
garden.
the garden anymore. So it's very good for mental health, tranquility, physical activity, just the enjoyment of kind of discovering what works and what doesn't. And being that it's extremely windy up there and there's only partial sun, it's blocked from about 7 in the morning till about 11, just
Mm.
because of the way the sun goes around the building. We get a good 6 to 8 hours of full sun in the summer. But to learn what to grow in a semi-arid, extremely windy, almost oceanside type environment where it
Yeah.
rains sideways and can be pretty harsh at times.
It's one of those situations. I have described this in the past in talking to people, and I say, you read in the books all the time about growing in dappled shade, but when you get three flat shade or 20 story shade, it's
Wind and windy shade,
and
yes.
windy. Yeah, so you have very extreme microclimates right there in that one little area, which is very interesting, and it makes it a challenge, I'm sure, to grow things early in the season and late in the season because of the lack of sun. So you've probably lost a lot of sun right now at this time of year, because I certainly do in my own yard, and because I have a northern exposure, and I lose a lot of the sun at this time of year. So when we talk about growing things in say row covers over the winter, well, there's not going to be any sun. So what's the point of that, really? So it's something I need to learn. Yes, Peggy.
So we also have a question for Vicky from Sue, who's watching,
Okay.
about she's wondering if you harvest seeds for next year's
Some of
garden.
the gardeners do, yes. Some of the gardeners do. We actually had a little seed library when we could meet in person. And so when we would have some of our training meetings the first year, people could trade, swap, or get seeds. Um, Because it's so cold, it's much colder here by the lake than even say if I go a little bit west of Broadway or Clark.
Mhm.
We find that our season doesn't really get warm enough till even June 1st for some things. It really has to be a pretty hardy crop
Yeah.
in May. So a lot of people do start from seedlings, especially as they're learning, but we do have about half that start from seeds. And I was going to mention we have a fair number of flowers too. So we have a good mix of flowers and also growing edible things. And then people are encouraged to decorate. We did have to do some netting because we thought we had tomato thieves, and what it actually was a persistent squirrel that I caught red-handed sitting on a deck box with a tomato in his mouth, chomping on it like an apple. So to protect against the persistent squirrel, we had to do some netting around some of the
Oh,
tomatoes.
I love that cartoon, Persistent Squirrel. Used to watch that all the time. Let me just show. I found the shot right here. This is of Jean's garden, and I just love the wildflowers. It's
Oh,
really
that's so beautiful, Jean.
it's very quite lovely. All right. Well, thank you for getting us off to a good start. Now, I want to go to Bolingbrook, Illinois, and in the lower left, Kyla Muhammad. She and her husband Rashid. And what is your son's name, Kyla?
So I have two sons,
Oh,
but
two sons. All right.
yes, both Saeed and Hassan. But Saeed is the one that submitted the photo for the Wild Ones contest that he won in the
Yeah,
kids category.
I guess we should probably let's find that since you're mentioning it's a really wonderful photo. Here it is. And tell us about that. Oh, and I don't know why these mics are popping off like this when I go to. This is a challenge for me today. So hang on a second. I'll find this. All right. Now you can tell us about it.
Okay, so one of the things that I think is really important for my family in terms of, one of the things we wanted to accomplish in doing our garden and yard redesign is really trying to help our children reconnect with nature and foster a deeper connection through observation and interaction. So after we installed a few different pollinator gardens in our yard, we started getting all sorts of monarchs because of the milkweed that we planted, as well as a number of other butterflies and hummingbird moths and things like that. And so we knew that the Wild Ones has an annual photo competition, and they have a category for photos for kids. So I encouraged my son as part of just, interacting with these natural spaces. I think photography is a great way for them to, be more observant and see the different things that maybe they wouldn't normally see. So he really kind of honed in on the monarch. We all love the monarch butterfly. It's beautiful. And he just was being very patient, and he saw it on the swamp milkweed, and he just kind of took his time, and he got that photo. So that photo is very similar to the one that he just won first place in the Wild Ones photo
So that's
competition
not
in
even the same
category.
photo, but that's a wonderful photo that your son took there, and you said you're a little jealous yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I tried to get, a really good close-up photo of the monarch too. I was kind of chasing him around and trying to be, still and get that shot, but nothing I got was even close to that nice of a photo. So I'm very proud of his photography skills.
All right, let's take a quick look at your video entry, and then we'll have to do a quick break. But I want to show folks what you put together. There's no music soundtrack. It's just some natural sounds in here. So we'll
Well,
just
and I just wanted to comment on that just really quickly.
okay.
I decided not to put music in it just because I also too wanted some of those sounds of nature to come through, because I think that's another way to interact with it.
All right, let's take a look.
Fabulous, Kyla. Beautiful.
Well done. Well done. And before we break here, I want to mention that you were recognized by the Conservation at Home program through the Conservation Foundation of DuPage County. So congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
How did you get involved with them?
So Conservation at Home, that program was actually on my radar even before we decided to do our yard renovation. The video that you just saw, we back 18 months ago, so in March of 2020, is really when we decided to just take our very, traditional front and backyard and just kind of start over and renovate it to try to make a much more sustainable and highly edible habitat. So Conservation at Home is a program that certifies homeowners landscapes for making environmentally friendly choices. And so I was already familiar with things like, installing native plants and having rain barrels or doing things to help conserve water and installing pollinator habitats and things like that. And so those are some of the things that we were very mindful of in our design. We wanted to take a very holistic approach in the design so that it would benefit not only us more in terms of highly edible foods, but also really benefit the ecosystem and wildlife as well.
Yeah.
All right.
And I know we've got to take a break, but when we get back, I'd love to talk more about your fruit tree and your edible shrub section.
Yes.
All right. And we will come back to all of our wonderful guests celebrating gardeners. Oh, thank you for holding. I'm glad you've got the sign there. Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki, and we will be right back.
Time to win, our hearts all in. Let's let the fun begin. Take a dive, take a dive, take a dive. I see you skydiving, diver. I see you climbing, diver. I see you diving. Take a dive, take a dive, take a dive. I see you skydiving, diver. I see you climbing, diver. I see you diving. Dive smart, dive smart, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive in, dive smart, dive smart, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard.
You have the ability to give your soil a superpower. It's called composting. If you don't have a backyard, you need to contact Collective Resource Compost. CRC has diverted 7,000 tons of food scraps since 2010. They bring you a fresh 5-gallon bucket or a 32-gallon neighbor tote with each pickup. You fill it with organic matter from your kitchen, they swap it out and get it to a commercial composting operation. Fight climate change. Go to collectiveresource.us.
The pandemic has tested all of us as we've learned to live, work, and interact differently.
Whether or not you've gotten sick, we must strengthen our immunity and our resolve to defeat COVID.
The COVID vaccines offer a safe and effective way to keep you, your family, and your colleagues safe.
So please, ask the questions.
Follow the science.
Get vaccinated.
And I hope we don't have to say that too much. Let's just do it, folks. Get vaccinated if we're going to get out of this. If Peggy and I and our colleagues are going to be able to go to gardens in person next year, you all need to get vaccinated. So just do it. Don't think about it. Just do it. Welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We're talking to some winners of the Chicago Excellence in Gardening Award 60-second garden video challenge. Before we move on from Kyla to Renea Lyles, Kyla, I'm impressed by the way you took what is it, sort of a typical suburban home and transformed it. And you mentioned some of the things in the video, which is get rid of as much lawn as you possibly can. My philosophy on that is when in doubt, rip it out. And then
and I know you had some flooding and water issues in the back of your property you mentioned.
Yeah, and so you got creative with those, didn't you?
Yes, absolutely. I think the most important thing when you decide that you're gonna renovate your yard, you need to really observe and pay attention to, where's the sunlight, shining, and what's like the best area for if you're going to be growing your annual vegetables, and you need to pay attention to where's the water pooling and which areas are dry and things like that. And so we definitely were paying attention to all those different factors in the design that we came up with, and we very much had a flooding issue in our backyard, particularly in the springtime. You'd get those torrential rains and it would all pool in that back corner. You can actually see, if you kind of look to the back there, that area in the back of the photo is actually where a lot of the water used to pool. So we installed a pretty large rain garden with a number of native plants back there to help absorb that extra water. The native plants have extra long roots, and so over time, as they continue to mature, they're going to really kind of be that sponge to help soak it up. And then we also installed a dry creek bed kind of along the edge to also help capture some of that. This is a close-up of the backyard rain garden in full bloom with the swamp mallow and swamp milkweed and blazing star.
Whoop. Hold on, sorry. That was I apologize for this. I just have no idea why this is glitching this way today. But go ahead with the plants you had in your rain garden.
Oh, sure. I was just saying that this is that was a shot of the swamp mallow as well as the swamp milkweed and blazing star that were in full bloom at the time. So we've been very pleased with it so far. We've already seen a tremendous difference in when we get those torrential rains. It's soaking it right up, which is what we were hoping for. So that has been great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations. It looks like a wonderful place, and there's much more to come. I mean, obviously this is still early on. It's like at Imperial Towers. You're just a couple of years into this, right?
Right. Yeah. And like I said, we did everything starting just in March of last year. So everything is still pretty new and getting established. So we're very pleased so far with the growth we've seen. I was just going to answer Peggy's question a little bit about the fruit hedge. We've incorporated a bunch of perennial vegetables as well as edible shrubs and trees. So we installed apple trees as well as like gooseberry and currant and honeyberry, all sorts of different things. So it'll be less work for us, down the road to get the harvest off of those things without having to continue to replant.
And you removed, because you have a couple of longer videos on the Conservation at Home site, and this is what I'm referring to. You removed a lot of just old shrub plantings at the foundations in order to put a lot.
Yeah. We had like 40-year-old overgrown yew bushes that were kind of, lining the front of our house. And so we're like,
Wait. That's valuable landscaping. What do you think you're doing?
So we're just like, what can we do to make this much more productive? I know we could put in, all sorts of berries and fruits and we put in aronia berry, which is also a good native one that's edible. So we kind of turned it from sort of a
that's chokeberry.
Yep, chokeberry. I try to avoid the chokeberry because then everyone's just like, why is it called chokeberry?
I don't know.
But yeah, it's because it's pretty tart. But
yeah, I've got I just think it's wonderful that I wish more people would take advantage of the native berries and shrubs. I think the shrubs are the least recognized plants in a native garden. Still, people have the traditional yews, as you say, and the burning bushes, and
junipers.
We can do better. We can do much better than that. All right. Well, we need to get to Renee here because she's patiently sitting by. And what I like about this conversation here today, and at the very end, we'll have a little bit of a free for all. Is that we have so many different kinds of gardens. We have Kyla, who's just a family doing their thing. We have the community garden at Imperial Towers, and now we have the teaching garden at UIC. Renee, how did that come to be?
It started back in 2016, and it is an extension of the Department of Kinesiology and Nutrition at UIC. I manage the foods lab in the nutrition part of the department, and it's really an outdoor classroom space that students go to, and just down the stairs from our foods lab, and they learn how to harvest, grow, and cook the produce and the herbs that we grow in the gardens. We really treat it like a classroom, and students have access to this when they take the classes that our department offers.
So
we've kind of started to, during the pandemic, obviously everyone was remote, so we did a lot of filming of the garden and, kind of doing more pre-recorded lessons on gardening and cooking. And we found that this was, a great way to kind of capture what we do each season and then make it more accessible to a wider audience. But during that time, we found that students not being on campus, we had all of this extra produce that we were accumulating. So one of our priorities at UIC is to have an impact on our community and to, reach the surrounding community in Chicago. And so we partnered with Grace Seeds Ministry and began to do regular donations to local food pantries in the area. So the garden has changed from what it started as. I think we've been able to expand, and the pandemic kind of forced us to do that. So that's exciting. It's 6 years old now. So.
Well, but the pandemic shaped so many different things and continues to shape, not just in the growing in the food world, but everything in our lives, but especially in growing and food. And so many people took to gardening. You can look at Kyla and what they did in their yard during the pandemic. And that happened to me. My garden looked better last year than it ever has. It certainly doesn't look as good this year. So I think we should show your video so folks can get a better idea of the UIC Nutrition Teaching Garden. So here we go.
Welcome to the UIC Nutrition Teaching Garden. When students visit this garden, they uncover a balanced ecosystem where its healthy soil supports the life of plants, insects, bacteria, wildlife, and subsequently us. In the human nutrition cooking courses offered here at UIC, students will play the role of an active participant in this urban growing experiment. They learn that the food production cycle begins with proper soil care. Students contribute to the health of the soil by setting aside their compostable kitchen scraps, thereby returning nutrients to this closed-loop model for better soil care and subsequent food production. From there, our worms do the rest of the work, turning plant refuse and garden trimmings into castings for improved soil conditions. We must act as more than consumers, and discovering and bolstering this relationship between ourselves and the earth will advance health and well-being for all.
And there you have it. Congratulations on that. My question to you about the garden, Renee, is who's keeping it together? Who does most of the work in the garden? Because it's I know how these things work in schools, especially when students are not in session. It falls upon people like you, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's important to have kind of one person who really is, responsible for the garden. But I have a lot of really great help. I have a teaching assistant. We had a summer employee. And then I have students who volunteer. So every Friday I host volunteer days, and we have a listserv of students from all over campus, not just our department, that want to get involved. So I think it is important to have one person who kind of is, managing, but then, offer opportunities and kind of set up structured time where people in, your community can come and participate and help. And really, that's how I get a lot of the work done.
I have to show. I have
So
to
thanks
show.
to all my volunteers.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad, and you get them and they'll show up even when class is not in session.
Yeah, they truly do. And, they're able to harvest and, take things home. I always encourage them to, tell me what they're cooking for the weekend, post it on Instagram and tag the garden. Cooking is certainly a very important part of this garden. It's one of the big reasons that we have it. And so, we're teaching those cooking skills in the foods lab. And so it's always nice when students can translate that into their home setting. And, having extra produce at the end of an afternoon of working in the garden is just a nice.
Well, I have to show this photo because I love this photo. This is I wanted to use this for my blog post, but the way the photo is constructed, I couldn't because I would have had to crop it too much, because you have to see the whole thing, the mirror at the top reflecting, and that's so you can teach. That's how you teach, with the mirror, so the students can watch what's going on the counter.
Right.
But that's a wonderful photograph.
Yeah, I didn't actually take that. The credit goes to Joshua Clark. He's a UIC photographer. So thanks, Josh, for doing that.
Sure. And it's just good to see all the other folks out in the garden and learning about not just how to cook things, but how to grow them as well.
Yeah, right. It's both important components are really emphasized with this outdoor classroom.
So what do you find that students like the most about having those gardens and participating in it?
Well, I think one part that we've found from the pandemic is it's so important for community engagement, like engaging with, the other students at UIC. I think a lot of students really benefit from being in a classroom with others, and they learn from others' mistakes, in addition to their own, and from their successes. So while it's nice to, have a teacher or instructor available, they really truly learn a lot just by working together on things. They have conversations on the side and, kind of share other knowledge that they might have about food, because everybody brings, something to the table about food, or, we all consume food. So everybody has, something to contribute to that.
Well,
and then I just think spending time in the garden and, getting outside of the classroom and, not in front of a laptop, and kind of having that kinesthetic experience where you're touching, the soil and the produce.
Did I read somewhere?
Yeah.
Did I read somewhere that, in fact, during a class, some students might go out for 5 minutes at a time into the garden and come back?
Oh, every class. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
that's
they're
part
going.
of so they're given a recipe at the beginning of a cooking class, and then they go down to the garden with a list of things to harvest. Yeah.
All right. Well, that is just wonderful, and now we get to open it up to everybody. And first of all, thank you all for the wonderful contributions and the videos. Congratulations to you, and thank you for supporting Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards. What I want to talk about right now is, and if we've got any questions, Peggy, from the chat room, let us know. It's an opportunity.
Nothing at the moment,
but my question is, what kind of a garden year was it? It was very interesting. It's been a dry year for the most part. I know, Kyla, you and I talked about the lurching from the dry to the heavy rains. I had 2.5. I had more than 3 inches of rain in my yard this past week. We'll talk to our meteorologist Rick DiMaio about that a little later on, and that it stresses plants when they're dry. How did everybody feel about coming out of this growing year?
I can start. One thing that we noticed was we do have a water source. We have a hose, so people had to go down more often to water their garden box, sometimes even twice a day, particularly if it was really windy and arid. Then again, it stresses out the leaves, but our medium is really quick draining. But we found that its sitting last year was actually good because all the soil mulched. So when we took the covers off, it was like a Christmas present because things were coming back, and so many of us had never gardened. It was like Christmas morning. It was a surprise, like, oh my gosh, that came back. And then learning about perennials and learning about what came back, and the soil was much more rich because it did sit there for a year. So we found that it was extremely lush in our garden.
Well, and you make a really, really good point to start, which is when you're growing in containers, they're much more vulnerable to dryness.
Especially wood ones, because everything just drains right through. It doesn't hold like regular soil in the ground, and the temperature changes a lot more too because the boxes are open to the air.
Gene, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I wanted to, number one, thank you for the compliment a couple of times about how in only 2 years we had this kind of miraculous space. And what I would offer is, if you saw a set of pictures from the first season and this season, they're indistinguishable. Our garden, because of the design, because of Mike's input, because of the medium, even with a bunch of novices, was lush midsummer, just right out of the box. And we hit the ground running the very first year. So this feels like a little bit old hat. It was more challenging with the drought, required more attention, more watering. But I think some of the pictures I may have sent you were from the first year in 2019. And once things were up and growing, you couldn't really tell the two seasons apart. So we were very fortunate to have a design, a layout, a medium, the support, as Vicki mentioned, from again, brilliant botanist to sustain this thing. But it was their first year.
And I'm glad you mentioned Mike Repkin again. He is a friend of the show. He hasn't been on the program in years, so I think it's time to bring him back. He's certain. I can see Peggy writing right now. It's going to go right on the list, and we'll be talking about this and say, well, we got to have Mike. And we have to bring him back. He is brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. Kind of scary, actually.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But I think what's really great about that is it encourages your gardeners, even if they're new, they're seeing a success right away.
Well, what I loved being able to do is to take a picture of something and text it to him and say, Mike, what's this? He'd say, well, that's a turnip. And it was fun to have an immediate response like that.
You know, everybody needs what's this person in their life, you know? So you just, I usually do that. My friends send me photographs of trees and they say, what's this? What should I be doing? And usually I fire it off to our buddy Skeet, who I know is watching, and say, hey, Skeet, would you identify? He's from our sponsor, Bartlett Tree Experts. and he'll give me an answer. It's great to have a "What's this?" person in your life. Kyla, how did things go in your yard with the different weather conditions?
Well, overall, I think, as I told you before, I'd say it was a success. I mean, I think I kind of managed my expectations, just given how, like I said, we were kind of going back and forth between, torrential rain and then drought. It was very uneven water. So I think one of the things that helped saved us is that we had a number of things that we planted that were that we harvested earlier in the season when we still were getting a lot of the rain. So a lot of our lettuces and leafy vegetables, as well as even the garlic that we planted, that requires a lot of rain or water up front, but that was out by midsummer. So we were able to kind of get that out and then replant some other things during sort of that drier time.
Speaking of the drier time, how did your rain garden hold up during the dry period?
It held up actually amazingly, and I think this is a testament going back to even the native perennials. So the rain garden plants, most of those got put in last year, I'd say last spring, so spring of 2020, and those plants already, even just in the year, you can tell that their root system has really penetrated deeper down in the ground. And although they prefer to have moist or wet soils, they are all also tolerant of when it's dry. So pretty much, I mean, anything that was in our rain garden, like, they were doing very well with minimal additional watering, from us. And the rain barrels too, I was going to say, I think really helped us during the drought periods, really pulling from those, because I think at this point we're storing, we could store up to about 300 gallons of water amongst our different rain barrels.
Yeah,
So
your
that
rain
really
barrels
helped.
are amazing, and you painted them all silver, so they match. Or did you get them like that?
No, we didn't paint them. That's just kind of how they.
Oh,
how
okay.
they came.
I'm used to more colorful rain barrels, but they look great.
Terracotta look or the green. Yeah.
Yeah. I need to get to Renee here before we go, because one of the things I wanted to ask you, Renee, you grow a lot of vegetables there. What vegetables are you growing that you would recommend to people and say, how come you're not growing this thing? You must experiment a lot with different kinds of vegetables.
Yeah. I think probably the most useful thing, if you just have a small area, is to grow herbs. Herbs add a lot of flavor to food, and they continue to grow. So, almost the more you harvest them, the more prolific they are, and the more bushy they get. I really like to grow carrots and beets. We did celery this year, and that is another one where you can harvest it pretty harshly, and it just keeps growing, right back. With carrots and beets, when you pull them up, they're done. But if you can kind of have things that will last, throughout the season and come back, that's, I think, it's going to serve your kitchen better in the long term.
Yeah. What more exotic vegetables would you say you're growing?
We did parsnips. We did Japanese eggplant. I have some different varieties of kale that were kind of interesting. We have a really nice red cabbage. We did some heirloom tomatoes that were a little bit different than anything I'd grown before. And I have quite a few different varieties of peppers. I have a watermelon pepper that I got from a farmer in Fairbury, Illinois. I saved the seeds from some peppers.
What is a watermelon pepper?
It kind of tastes like a watermelon. It has a fairly mild to medium spice level, and it's just pretty little. It looks like a habanero, but it's red in color, and it really tastes like a watermelon.
Well, you don't want to. Well, one of the things I want to say is you don't want to confuse a habanero and a watermelon pepper. That would be a disaster.
No, these are red, and you can really just pop them in your mouth.
Wow. Okay, well, we're just about out of time. Final words from anybody. I know you guys have really been entertaining and informative this morning.
Thank you so much for creating the wonderful videos and sharing them.
I wish we would have had a chance to show some of the other videos, Kyla, but you're just flat out of time here because I knew we would have a lot to talk about. What are your thoughts going into 2022? Anybody?
The aforementioned Mike was on site yesterday helping close up our gardens. What we're doing, since we wound up using pine for the boxes as opposed to cedar or some other longer term wood, heading into this next season, he and his crew were out doing some linseed oil application for us, which was very helpful. Half of them have been covered and prepped for winter. Our season is going to end abruptly at the very end of October. So he'll be back one more time.
Wow.
People were just obligated to trim things down and get ready for covering. So we're going to be going into next season, much as we did this time, with the expectation that we will actually have a season again. But again, Mike and his people from Urban Habitat Chicago, which is a non-for-profit, wonderful organization, came out yesterday. I think he had a crew of several people with him beginning to cover up the garden.
I imagine he brought a bunch of MacArthur Genius Grant friends that he has, and they were all working in your garden. Gene Arbetter, thank you so much. Vicki Rosich, Kyla Muhammad, Renea Lyles, again, congratulations on doing well in the Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards 60-second garden video challenge. And thank you for the sign, Peggy. And I hope we get a chance to talk again on the show.
Thank you so much.
Very much for having us.
It was indeed our pleasure. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. More to come. Please stick around.
Hey, Vic Nakashima here at Bartlett Tree Experts, and today I'm out here in the field with Scott Anderson, certified arborist. Scott, what are we doing today?
We are injecting ash trees to protect them from the emerald ash borer.
The emerald ash borer was first found in the United States in 2002, accidentally brought over from Asia in woodpacking material. Since then, this pest has spread to nearly all native areas of its preferred host, the ash tree. All native ash are susceptible, and they can die within 1 to 3 years of the initial attack. The damage comes from the larvae, which hatch and bore through the bark into the sapwood. Then as they grow, they chew S-shaped galleries into the phloem and cambium, severely damaging the tree's vascular system. So how do you treat for such a pest?
Well, today what we're doing is we're actually injecting the ash trees on this property. So we're actually drilling holes in around the root flare of the tree, setting a plug in there with a little diaphragm, and we actually fill those plugs with material. That material goes up through the tree, and for 2 years at a time, it protects the tree from the emerald ash borer.
So you're actually drilling into the tree to put the material into the vascular system.
Yep.
The material we inject into the stem works its way up the tree and makes the tissue beneath the bark toxic for the ash borer without causing unintentional harm to pollinators and other wildlife. So the method of injecting, is there anything beneficial about that method?
Yeah, so the material's only going into this tree. It's not going to affect anything else around it. Whereas if you were spraying, you got to watch wind and also what's around, because you don't want the material you're spraying to affect beneficials or get onto, plants that aren't yours. Could be your neighbors.
Mm-hmm. Or patio furniture. Anything. Kids, pets. Vegetable garden. All right, so that's it for now. I want to thank Scott for his time and telling us all about injecting ash trees to treat for the emerald ash borer.
Welcome to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio with just a soupçon of humor. Or is that a dash? Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, root, bacon. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make me music, porches, lawn serene. Give me all that I can take. Get me
And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. I forgot to put up the other screen. That's because I
That's
was
the little bottom boxes again.
Yeah, the what?
The thing that says the Mike Nowak Show with all
Right.
the...
I mean, I could do that now, but that would be kind of annoying to watch me set that up. I suppose I could set it up while you're talking about something that Melinda Myers might be doing this Wednesday. And I hope I sent the right link to Rick. I haven't. It's been so long since I sent him that link, so we'll see if I got the right one out to him. I think I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so friend of the show, Melinda Myers. She's been on many, many times. She was on a couple of weeks ago talking about fall gardening. She has a
it was actually more than a couple of weeks ago. I think it's like a couple of months ago. It's really amazing how time is flying. She was I think it was beginning of September, if I'm not mistaken.
Sometime in September, yeah.
Yeah.
And she does free webinars from time to time, and she's got one coming up on kid and pet friendly houseplants. And that's going to be coming up online. And I'm trying to get to that link at the moment so that I can
I've got
give it to people much longer than the really, really, really long. What I'm going to have to do is link it. It is on October 20th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And this is an online webinar. And the description, you love them all, kids, pets, and houseplants. Discover ways to enjoy them all under one roof. Melinda will cover plants that are safe to grow when kids and pets are in the house. She'll share tips on safely displaying them out of reach of most pets and children, and then finish off the discussion with ideas for keeping your plants safe from curious, playful, and destructive pets. And again, this is a free webinar on October 20th at 6:30 p.m. You just need to go online and register for it on Zoom, and I will share that link.
Cool. Yeah, and I'm amazed that any pets, any kids survive this world, considering how many
Well, it does say most. It does say most. So if you've got the pet that's able to get up to wherever you're hiding this plant.
Well, see, I've never had to worry about that with my little kitty, and she's just
or Basil.
Yeah.
My dog doesn't get in there.
So
knock on wood here.
Yeah. No, I know, but she knows her stuff, and the great thing about Melinda, as she mentioned last time she was on the show, is she'll stick around as long as people are asking questions. I'll bet Dan Costa, who's watching, has some tips about growing indoor plants. How do you keep cats out of your bonsai, Dan? That's what I would really like to know.
Why? Do you get cats in your bonsai plants?
Well, no, I'm just saying cats tend to tip stuff over, digging stuff. I mean, and if you had a bonsai and you'd been pruning it for years and tending to it, and it's your art, it's your life, and then the cat tips it over.
Cat comes along.
Yeah, it's just. No, I just wondered what if you. Exactly. Wait. It's not very loud here, but loud enough, I guess.
I think Dan's watching, so if he's got any comment on keeping cats out of the bonsai.
Or, hold on, keeping your frog out of the bonsai as well. Or maybe encourage. Oh, Dan, he just wrote, when I had my cat, he didn't try to eat any bonsai. Well, that's good.
And Sue says there's an app for that.
Oh, the birds. Oh, the bird sounds. Yeah. No, we like doing it physically here. We're totally old school in our sound effects. Boy, that was weird. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There a bunch of next thing in the news. We want to follow up on the Save Bell Bowl Prairie issue because it's been an interesting couple of weeks since we talked about it on the show. In fact, Kathleen sent me a timeline, and I think she sent
Yeah,
it to you
I've got
too.
that pulled up right now. So we did the show on October 2nd and talked to Carrie Lee and Robbie Q. Telfer about Bell Bowl
Yeah,
Prairie.
and I think let's start though where she said Northern Public Radio. We should give them credit because they sort of got the ball rolling.
But what is it? I think we need to tell people who didn't watch that show what Bell Bowl Prairie is.
Yeah, no. We will. It's a. Go ahead. I can
go ahead.
There is a website now that has been created that you can go to Save Bell Bowl, BELLBOWL Prairie.org. Save Bell Bowl Prairie. It's one of the last remaining prairies in Illinois. We used to be called the Prairie State, and now we have less than 1/100th of 1% prairie.
Yeah, it's a dry gravel prairie, actually.
Yeah, it's a Category 1 Illinois Natural Areas Inventory site. That's a designation that's granted by state biologists that reflects the site's very high ecological quality. It's some of the most intact and undisturbed natural plant communities found anywhere in the state of Illinois, and unfortunately happens to be sandwiched between a couple of runways at Chicago Rockford International Airport. And so when
it's in the way of progress.
Yeah, whatever.
Define progress.
So when Northern Public Radio began covering this, there wasn't a lot going on. There were a few people. I found out about it through Rob Telfer, who was on our show a couple of weeks ago with Carrie Lee from the Natural Land Institute. And they were aware of this, and a few people were, but a great many people were not. And since that time, this issue
popped up quickly too.
Yeah, this issue has taken off because it's about saving one of the remaining prairies in Illinois. You know, we don't care really that it's sandwiched between two runways and that it would be convenient for the airport authority to bulldoze it. We don't care really. What we care about is saving the prairie.
Right.
And
it is, and it's a prairie remnant. It's not a prairie restoration. It's a remnant. So it's all original prairie, original, ecosystem, soil health, plants.
And among the threatened and endangered species seen at Bell Bowl Prairie are the federally endangered rusty patch bumblebee, the state endangered prairie false dandelion, the state endangered large flowered penstemon, the state endangered loggerhead shrike, the state threatened black-billed cuckoo, the state endangered northern harrier, the state endangered upland sandpiper. Just to name some of the flora and fauna that are on that site.
And it's interesting as more and more bird watchers and botanists and citizen scientists and everybody have gotten involved, how many more, as you're saying, endangered species are being identified as having a home on that prairie.
Right. So conservationists, ecologists, environmentalists they've all jumped on their horses and they're saying we got to make this stop. This has to stop. I don't know how in good conscience anybody could even entertain the notion of bulldozing it at this point, except that the bulldozers are sitting out there right now ready to go. And
November 1st.
And the airport has put up signs that says this is, no trespassing or whatever they had. And it's in anticipation of people, chaining themselves to lead plants or to rusty patched bumblebees to stop this. Interestingly, this week, Openlands, a great conservation organization, had its annual luncheon, which Peggy and I have been to many times. I did not go this week just because still not interested in meeting in person. But what happened, they were honoring Senator Dick Durbin. And in the middle of his speech, there was a protest, and a banner was marched across the balcony, Save Bell Bowl Prairie. And some people have said, well, that was inappropriate. And I'm stunned. I'm saying, no, that was absolutely appropriate. That was about the most. If you cannot preach to the choir when the choir is in session, when you had a couple of hundred or more of the foremost environmentalists in the Midwest gathered in one place, if that is where you cannot get the word out, then there's something wrong. If they would not respond to the banner, yes, they were having lunch. Yes, Dick Durbin was speaking. That's why you do it at those times. That's why you do a protest, is to be seen, not to meekly fold your hands and sit on them and wait until you're called upon to speak. No, I think it was brilliant to go there and make that known, because now everybody knows, at least certainly in the environmental world, that this is an issue that needs to be addressed right now. And so my sources tell me that there are talks going on that involve some of the higher offices in the state and Dick Durbin as well. I'm not privy to those conversations, so I can't tell you what has been said and what is being discussed. I'd be surprised if something did not happen to at least postpone this. And the longer it's postponed, the less likely there is to be bulldozing going on in the prairie, is what I would guess. But things are happening behind the scene. We are going to talk about this on the show. I hope maybe next week, maybe in 2 weeks, because the deadline was November 1st, from what I understand. And you can find out more about this just by going to SaveBellBowlPrairie.org. It has all the information you need.
There's some great links to a lot of information up there. Cassie Surrey has written some really good information about the prairie and prairies in general. There's a Facebook group that you can join as well that has
called Save Bowl Prairie, Bell Bowl Prairie.
It's created September 21st. It has 2008 members. 689 have joined this week, and that was as of when Kathleen sent us this morning. There's probably a lot more that have joined since that point. Robbie Q. Telfer, I don't have the link, but he did a great op-ed in the Chicago Tribune this past week that really is well thought out, well done, and has some great points.
Yeah, and I posted it on our Facebook page.
Yeah, I just have it right here to scroll.
So there is there's a meeting Tuesday, October 19th at 6 o'clock p.m., a public meeting at the Burpee Museum, 737 North Main Street in Rockford. And there's a Zoom link. And again, you can find all of this at SaveBellBowlPrairie.org. So lots going on in that regard. Is it going to work? Is it going to help? I sure hope so. And I want to make sure we didn't miss.
Yeah, there's an action alert. You can go to our website, MikeNowak.net, and click through for the action alert letter to be sent to Governor Pritzker and several federal legislators and local legislators from the Illinois Environmental Council. And we've got the link to that right up on our webpage.
Okay. So I hope people take action. What they're saying on the site is tell 5 people and have them tell 5 people. And you know how that works. And
yeah, it's too important, too critical of a habitat, too critical of everything, and too important to just let it go away.
Yeah. So a few other things going on in the world. One of the things I've noticed that I saw an article, I don't think I forwarded this to you, Peggy, but GardenCom was reporting on supply chain problems And they are also happening in the horticultural world. You know, you can't miss the stories now out there about supply chain problems, and sooner or later, you're going to go try to order something or go to a store, try to pick something up, and you're going to realize it's not there because of the issues.
Sitting on a container ship somewhere off of Los Angeles.
And there was a question in Greenhouse Growers 2021 State of the Industry Survey, and they were highlighting concerns in the wake of COVID-19. The question posed was, what are the top issues your company is facing now that local economies have opened back up? Nearly 70% of respondents cited supply chain disruptions, even more than labor shortages, which they write here in any other year would likely have been the top concern. So, another question was, how did the COVID-19 pandemic affect your spring 2021 sales? And again, it's in the horticultural industry. Some people said sales were stronger earlier this year because some customers missed the boat in 2019. I think they meant 2020. They didn't want to miss out on certain plants and came in earlier to make their purchases. Somebody said we could not grow as planned because we could not find the labor to help in production. We only had enough labor to maintain sales. Somebody else said, I can't say for sure, but we were up 35% last year, and now we are up another 5%. So I think this is still a result of all the new gardeners, and you know that's still happening because of the pandemic. Another comment, we were not able to get items delivered to us from suppliers. No ships, no drivers, etc. So it's interesting hearing those things in the horticultural world as well.
Rippling through everything.
Yeah, everything's connected. You called my attention to an article, which I saw, which is we might bring up with Rick, that Lake Superior is among the fastest warming lakes on the planet.
And that climate change may be the culprit behind its algae blooms.
Well, the fact that Lake
Actually,
Superior...
before we get to that real quick, Dan Costa just pointed out pottery importation is severely affected. Can't get any bonsai pots till at least January.
Wow. See, I figured Dan would have something to say about that.
Yeah.
But getting back to Lake Superior, do you have that story up?
Yeah. This is in the Chicago Tribune. This was posted this week, October 15th. And, you know, you read the headline, Lake Superior is among the fastest warming lakes on the planet and climate change culprit behind its algae blooms. So Lake Superior, being a cold, deep lake, freshwater lake, obviously, first off, has had warmer temperatures, and I'm sure Rick will be talking about that again today. But what they are running up into is algae blooms on Lake Superior happening fairly regularly. You know, we hear about the algae blooms in Lake Erie, which in the last few years have been quite severe. I think there was 3 days where residents, some of the residents around Lake Erie couldn't even use the water. There's been fish die-off, and so much of that has come from farm runoff and other conditions. And what is puzzling scientists, according to this article, is that Lake Superior started reporting algae blooms in 2012, but they're growing. There's more and more of these blooms in areas where there is no runoff, and they're trying to figure out, where is this coming from? And there was typically these blooms they've been seeing since 2012 have had no serious levels of toxins confirmed. And the article says that changed last month when a bloom near Superior, Wisconsin, had left a beach's water streaky green and contained a toxin more potent than cyanide, just beyond the level set for safe swimming, set by the UIC. And they're starting to see more and more of these toxic blooms just popping up, and they're trying to figure out, and it seems to be tied into some of the cycles of rain and some of the cycles of heat. And it's a really long article, but it's got scientists concerned and kind of confused right now.
We'll have to see if Rick has been aware of that. And then I saw something come across in Inside Climate News.
That link.
Okay, that's a good one. Inside Climate News writes, in the native language of the people of Alaska's North Slope, and I'm going to have to try to pronounce this, Sagavanirktok. Sagavanirktok means strong current. But to managers of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, the Sagavanirktok River means a growing flood threat to the pipeline that pulses with an average of 20 million gallons of crude oil a day from Prudhoe Bay. Increasing rain and snowmelt at the headwaters of the Sag River, which parallels the pipeline for 67 miles in northern Alaska's Brooks Range, has pipeline officials seeking permission from the state to construct massive flood control barriers to protect the pipeline from the river's surges. The mitigation work foreshadows what scientists, pipeline consultants, and environmental advocates say is a future where infrastructure like the Trans-Alaska Pipeline will face increasing threats from climate change-generated assaults. Now, think about that. If they're going to be putting up these barriers, there are the bulldozers again. What kind of damage can they do to ecosystems up along the pipeline that hasn't already been done by construction of the pipeline? Mm-hmm. And then also this week, and it's kind of related, dozens of indigenous climate activists were arrested and removed from the U.S. Department of the Interior in Washington on Thursday after taking over a lobby of the department's Bureau of Indian Affairs for several hours. The protests were part of a week of indigenous-led demonstrations in which activists called on President Biden to declare a national climate emergency and stop approving fossil fuel projects, such as the Line 3 pipeline that was recently completed in Minnesota despite fierce opposition by indigenous communities.
Yeah, and tied into Line 3, which is Enbridge, Line 5, which is the one that runs under the Straits of Mackinac, that's in the news. Canada, at the urging of Enbridge, repeatedly called on a court to delay any decision on the case of Line 5. As we've talked about before, and we probably will again, Governor Whitmer in Michigan issued a shutdown order for the pipeline. Enbridge sued Michigan in federal court in an effort to keep its Line 5 oil pipeline flowing in the Great Lakes. Enbridge recently got the Canadian government to invoke a 1977 pipeline treaty. Yet this week, Judge Janet Neff essentially told Enbridge and Canada to back off, saying, quote, "This court does not rule via letter requests." So the judge has to decide if she's going to let the case proceed in federal court or send it back to the state court at this point. So there's a lot going on with pipelines right now. And I think the California oil spill has again escalated the importance of dealing with.
As we've said on the show, and we're not the only ones, obviously, to say this, if you build a pipeline, it will leak. It's
a matter of time.
It's a fact.
And that was the California one for sure.
And speaking of pipelines and supply chain disruptions, and increased demand are going to result in the price of natural gas and in our area, in much of the country, as a matter of fact, this winter, some folks are expecting it to triple, hitting a 13-year high. So remember how, it's the bridge to the future. It's the bridge to clean energy. And the great news is it's cheap. Well, folks, it's not cheap anymore. It's not cheap right now, or it's not going to be. It's already, the prices have started to go up in Illinois. And it's going to hit.
You're saying 35%.
Well, in October, natural gas prices were up 198% at People's Gas. That's Mine. Yay. Can't wait to pay. 125% at Nicor and 91% at North Shore Gas over the same month last year, according to the Citizens Utility Board. It's going to be a very expensive winter, says David Collada, Executive Director of the Citizens Utility Board. And again, it's a combination of all those things. Natural gas prices have been spiking globally, with industry analysts pointing to a number of factors, including its growing use as a cleaner fuel for electrical power plants, increased demand, supply disruption, and the February cold snap in the U.S. also contributed to surging prices. So apparently we're still feeling the effects of that cold snap we had at the beginning of 2021. So, well, we got any more good news? Yeah, bundle up. Exactly. In fact, I'm going to be back when we come back. I'm going to have a jacket on because I am freezing to death right here. I can't. This is the first time.
No, my window's open. I'm going.
It's the first time I've been able to say that in a long time this summer. So we need to.
But before we go into the break,
Yes.
two things that we need to clarify. One, Rick texted and wants to know if you can see him.
Oh, let me take a look. Was a little concerned.
While you're doing that, again, to clarify, we've got the spot that we're running for McHenry County College's Green Expo.
Yep.
That is virtual this year. Kim Hankins is going to be on the show coming up on the 24th next week to talk about it. And just let folks know it's virtual. You can go online and register. Because the spot makes it seem like it's in person, but they decided, again, with COVID precautions, to go virtual. But there's going to be all sorts of great discussions and workshops and things and vendors.
No, I do not see Rick. So what I have to do is go through and make sure that I sent him the right link. I'm not sure why he doesn't have the other one. Which means I got to do a search function here. Is anybody watching this and want to help me do the search functions?
And sorry, folks, I'm texting Rick, so just kind of like sing along.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't
live radio at its best?
It's been that kind of a day, hasn't it? Wait. No. All right. I'm going to do that, and we're going. Exactly. Where's my?
Ellen!
Oh, we can do that. I mean, I do have control of that if we need to.
Okay, Rick says he's on a different link.
Okay, yeah, I have to. What do you mean he's on a different link? What does he mean by that?
He says he's on, but a different link. So maybe you see him somewhere.
Okay, I'm going to look and see if I see Rick, and I better pop up this, and we'll do this. We'll be right back, and I hope with the meteorologist Rick DiMaio. Please stick around. Yeah, exactly. Oh wait, hold on. All right. Oh, this is interesting. We're getting a glitch here. Wow. Okay, I think I know why Rick is not here. And I think it's because the system has just decided to freeze. We're frozen here. I cannot play the commercial.
I'm a physician.
I am a nurse.
I'm a nurse too, but I'm also a daughter.
That's why I got the COVID-19 vaccine.
I got it because I'm a son and a husband.
I got it to protect my community.
It's been proven to be extremely effective against the spread of the virus.
It's been more rigorously tested than any vaccine in history to make sure it's safe.
When we get it, we protect ourselves and our community.
It's your choice. If you have questions, find out more.
You can help slow climate change in 2021 by composting. And you don't even need a backyard. By composting communally in multi-unit buildings across Chicagoland, Collective Resource Compost has diverted 7,000 tons of food scrap since 2010. CRC brings you a fresh 5-gallon bucket or a 32-gallon neighbor tote with each pickup. You fill it with organic matter, they swap it out, and get it to a commercial composting operation. Fight climate change. Go to collectiveresource.us.
And it's over that fast. Okay.
I was going to say, it's not fade to black, it's fade from black.
Yeah, I'm
Did we
still
find Rick?
still looking for. Let's see if Rick's there. No, he's not in where he should be. He says he's there. I don't see him there.
Tell him to try again.
Well, wait a second. No, I need to find this. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to play a little video here. Give me a chance to tap dance.
Well, Mark is singing along in chat here, so.
This is the video that we had from Kyla Muhammad and her lovely garden from Conservation at Home. They put this together, which we didn't get a chance to play before. It will give me a chance to figure out what I need to send to Rick. So everybody, enjoy.
In the last year and a half, Kyla and Rashid Muhammad have transformed their yard into a Conservation at Home certified sustainable and edible landscape. They replaced most of their lawn with edible, medicinal, or native plants that feed their family.
Some of the beautiful berries are coming in.
Provide habitat and nourishment for birds, bees, and butterflies.
We put in roughly 50 different plants over there that really pollinators love.
Or help them deal with frequent flooding on their property.
The reason that we did the rain garden right here in this location is that we get a lot of water on our property. It's kind of been an ongoing issue because we're kind of the low spot in the neighborhood.
Kyla and Rashid also have several rain barrels, 2 rain gardens, and a French drain system that helps them manage and conserve stormwater.
And the water runs along this whole trench, along the whole back line of the property. We have elderberry, and we have a lot of other native plants that take advantage of this water when it's high.
It's a little intangible, like the benefits of growing and eating your own food. It just always tastes better when it's coming from your own garden or your own yard. So there's that benefit, but then also too, planting native plants or plants that are great for pollinators and wildlife is super important too. You know, the ecosystem doesn't exist in a bubble. Everything is all connected. I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to use our yard or our garden space to feed ourselves and nourish ourselves, as well as nourish the ecosystem and the wildlife. Turf grass alone doesn't really allow for that.
Not even 2 years into the project, they are already reaping the rewards of fresh fruits, vegetables, and herbs, as well as a parade of wildlife through their gardens.
You know, we've become bird watchers, even though we can't recognize a lot of them yet. But I think, you know, it's already been a great journey watching and discovering new birds and learning about them and whatnot. And so I look forward to discovering all the things I don't yet know and meeting all the wildlife and things that I don't yet know.
Kyla and Rashid show us that our yards can do more for the environment, wildlife, and our family.
And look who is here. Wow. That's what I just needed a couple of minutes. Let's make sure I got his mic on. I got to find that. I don't think it's, oh, it is on. Rick, can you hear us?
Rick.
I can hear you fine, guys.
Fantastic. Wow.
Yeah.
Where
See
are
what
you?
technology allows you to do once you get it going right.
Yeah, it is amazing. I'm gonna keep that link in a special spot where if you find you're without it, I can just fire it off. I had to go searching through my emails to find the email where I sent you that link, like 8 months ago. So, but we're good. We're good to go, as long as you don't
We'll
freeze
go.
too much. All right. So where
No,
are you?
I'm not going to forget.
It's not that
One
cold.
of our favorite golf courses. Yeah. We're on the hole of Canal Shores Golf Course.
Oh.
Ah.
Yeah. See it?
It's
way in the back there. See that?
Yep.
And,
Yeah, walking
there's my
jacks?
trusty companion. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. There. See him? If I can keep on. Yeah. He found himself a golf ball, and there he goes.
He's having a good old time there.
Oh yeah. Well, we try to get out here because it's one of the best places to observe nature, nice and quiet, and he'll always manage to find himself a Titleist, and when he does, he doesn't let go of it for a while.
Is that his golf ball of preference?
You know what? Anyone that he finds is the golf ball of preference at that time, but it's usually a Titleist. Yeah, it's the number one. It's the number one ball on the Pro Tour, right?
Yep.
So,
Or is that the number one lost golf ball?
well, Peg, if you've ever played Canal Shores Golf Course, it's the number one lost ball. Especially during this time of the year, because the leaves are out and it's really tough once you hit it left or right of the fairway to find it. But I just got to make sure that Jax doesn't pick up the golf ball that some older gentleman's about to hit. Come on, Jax, this way. So how you guys doing?
Okay. What a change in from last week in terms of humidity, in terms of temperature. It's fall finally.
Yeah, and we were talking about this, how this coming weekend was really going to be, quite the transition. And all of a sudden it's the 16th of October, where midway through climatological fall. And on top of that, we've recovered quite a bit in the rainfall department. I was just looking at the, up to, preliminary climate report data through the first half of the month of October. For O'Hare, we're at 2.51 inches of rain. We're actually 0.4 of an inch of rain above normal. Rockford is at 3.2 inches of rain for the month. Yeah, we've gotten some pretty decent rains. And Mike, eventually when you go to the maps, you can show the listeners and viewers those numbers. But what's really cool is the departure above normal temperature-wise. We're 10 degrees above normal for O'Hare and 12.5 for Rockford, but it's really the overnight lows. Overnight lows have been about 14 to 15 degrees above normal for both stations, which I don't think I've ever seen before from a standpoint of warmth for the month of October. And part of that is due to the fact that we've been really, really humid. The humid air mass that got here pretty much at the end of, or the humid pattern rather, that got here at the end of July, stayed with us through the month of August and forced us to run our air conditioners as much as possible to make us comfortable. Stayed with us through September, and then also through half the month of October as well. So I believe this is the 7-day rainfall totals map, and it shows pretty much 3 to 4 inches of rain that came down from Kansas through Missouri into Western Illinois. Again, that area is the part that didn't need the rain, but they got it. And you look at up here in Northern Illinois, and we average anywhere between about 1.5 inches and 2 inches of rain. And what's really remarkable is I always like to talk about how well forecast models these days, perform. And it's really important as a meteorologist and a climatologist to always make sure that what you're looking at is got a pretty good track record, and the pattern has been somewhat, easy to predict. So when you look at the forecast model that we used last week, I always like to show my students the difference between an analysis and a forecast. But if you look at the next map, which is the forecast model, it shows that this kind of worked out pretty well. I mean, we had forecasted, or not we had forecasted, but several forecast models showed anywhere between about, an inch and a half of 2 inches of rain across northern Illinois, about 2 to 3 inches from Kansas into Missouri. It showed that dry wedge across northern Iowa into Minnesota and northern areas of Wisconsin. But this was, again, if you look at the way the rain came down, it came down from a southwest to northeast flow pattern, which was indicative of the upper level flow and also indicative of the fact that we had, strong southerly winds. I think a couple of days this week, we had overnight low temperatures in the upper 60s and dew points in the mid to upper 60s. And I think that's one of the reasons why the grass looks about as green as it has almost literally all summer long. Two reasons for that. We've gotten decent rains, which is obviously something that grass likes. It's been somewhat sunny on the days that it hasn't rained, but we've also had a fair amount of high levels of humidity, which allows things to not dry out. So the evaporation rate has been really, really low over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And, maybe this could help out with some of the fall foliage here as we get into the peak of the season over the next 2 weeks. Last week when I was up in Wisconsin, it didn't look that good. Hopefully it'll do something different down here in northern Illinois.
I before we leave the rain map, actually, I'll pop you back up here for a second. A couple of things in my yard. On Monday I got, what was it? It was an inch and a half of rain, and then 2 days later I got another half inch. So I got 2 inches of rain this week, and my basement backed up again. It flooded, and I think it had, and my neighbors did not. So there's something going on in my basement that I need to address. But that was still a lot of rain, and we didn't even notice that it had backed up into the basement until 2 days later when it had already receded. But then we got the half inch and it backed up again. I went, well, a basement should not back up with half an inch of rain. So there's something
and
weird.
I got a couple of inches of rain here in Lake County too, which is good.
And the other thing about the lawns and the grass you're talking about, Rick, in addition to the moisture and the humidity, cooler temperatures. Even though we were in the 70s, that's not 90s. When you hit 90s, our cool season lawns do not like that. So they do well. That's why they call them cool season grasses, because they do well in the spring, they do well in the fall, and right now, they're loving it.
Yeah, I'm almost thinking this is what it must be like, during the early part of the summer and the late part of the summer is like in Seattle, where it's cool and it's wet and everything is green, as opposed to the dryness and the drought that they had experienced early. But yeah, everything's lush. I think you really nailed it there, Peg. I mean, I think these last 2 weeks have been some of the nicest weeks that I've ever experienced, from a standpoint of late season warmth and just the right amount of rain at the right amount of time.
So I'm sitting here looking at buoy data. Wilmette buoy 63.3. It was 66.7 last Sunday, and here we are at 63.3.
Yeah, and it was amazing, Peg, because I was at Rebecca's son Zach is on the sailing club from Marquette University, and we were at a regatta yesterday at Northwestern. There were 10 schools there. There was University of Michigan, Minnesota, UW, there was Northwestern. I think there was Purdue. I forget the other schools that were there. But some of the students were talking about how, you have to push your boat out into the water in Lake Michigan. Other lakes, you just kind of jump on it from a dock. And they were talking about the water was warmer than the air temperature. So we had temperatures in the low 50s at the start of the race and strong northwest winds of 20 to 25 miles per hour. But the lake was like 63 degrees. And again, over this week, there were people still doing their 6 o'clock swim, although it was probably a little bit dark at that point, but still doing their 6 o'clock swim in Lake Michigan. And it's amazing. I was looking at some of the clouds. So
can you repeat that, Rick? Can you repeat that? You broke up.
Yeah. I was looking at the clouds across northern part of Lake Superior, and they were producing significant amounts of lake effect rain. So because the lakes are so warm, the cold weather that we had, which typically just produces clouds, was actually producing lake effect rain showers. So I think that was kind of neat to be able to see how warm lake allow you to produce some form of precipitation, but obviously in the form of rain and not snow. A little bit too snow.
Yeah, I might ask you when you hit a spot where we're nice and clear. I might ask you to just stand for a couple of minutes, because as you move around, we tend to lose a little bit of the signal. I want to show you. By the way, I popped up the 7-day rainfall. This is a nationwide. You sent me this map,
Yeah.
and it looks like there was quite a bit of activity in the Dakotas and in eastern Montana.
Yeah, that was the storm that came out of the Pacific Northwest last week, and it stalled and it produced more so in the way of snow than rain. But some of the maps also that I sent you showed you significant amounts of snowfall in Montana, Wyoming, and the Black Hills got almost 2 feet of. I don't think they did it because about a day before that they just had like winter weather advisories, and they went up to winter storm warnings and then blizzard warnings. And there was some significant tree damage in areas of the Black Hills, which they'll get every once in a while. But that map that you're showing right now basically shows a large area of 15 to 20 inches of snow. But what's really important about this is it was a real heavy wet snow, and some of the liquid that came out of that was anywhere between about 1.5 inches and 2 inches of liquid. So this was one of the more significant precipitation for the Black Hills, parts of North Dakota, but more so in areas of northern Montana or northern Wyoming and Montana. And this is one of the ski resorts. I think it's just north of what the area is called Cheyenne Crossing. And it's really remarkable because it literally went from green to brown to white in a matter of about 2 days. And it'll go back to this will all melt probably by the time we get if not today. But look at the mountains in Wyoming, in Montana. This is Big Sky, Montana. This is about an hour west of Yellowstone. And this is one of the more popular ski resorts that people like to go to early in the year because typically the roads are still fairly open. You don't really have to drive that far to the mountains. And they got about 20 inches of snow. And other areas in parts of Colorado, Loveland Pass, part of the Tetons as well. They got an additional 1 to 2 feet of snow. So oftentimes you'll hear in the news, there's snow in the Rockies. This is kind of normal for them. But again, when they get snow this early in the year, this is very, very beneficial because it's usually wet. The ground is usually more impervious, so that snow will actually melt and get down into the topsoil. So anytime you get early season snowfall where the ground isn't cold or the snow basically evaporates back down into the atmosphere, this is really, really good news. So this is also excellent because it'll actually suppress any sort of late season wildfires in parts of Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Idaho, and Montana. So when you get this much snow this early and has that much liquid water content, it's beneficial in many, many.
I was going to tell you that you should just stick around where you were standing. You were getting a good signal, and then it started to break up. But let's pop in the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook if you're there.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, so
stay
basically,
right there, Rick. Don't move.
Yeah, don't move.
This is basically. So I hit the spot you're saying. So pretty much what you see right here is the back edge of what's going to be our pattern next week, which is going to go back to being dry again, but not warm. I think our warm weather is going to be with us literally Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then after it cools down a little bit, it's going to go back to being dry. But you can almost see there's like a real deep trough that's going to develop along the West Coast, produce huge amounts of precipitation and snow in the mountains from California northward, and then very, very dry weather from the northern plains back into the Midwest. So this is going to be one of those events that you typically get in the middle to late part of October, where the pattern just kind of gets stuck for about a week or two before it begins to develop into more of a winter pattern, which is still obviously another month and a half away at this point.
Yeah, and here are the 6 to 10 day temperatures. It looks like we're kind of in the normal range.
Yeah, and basically what this shows you here is for us here in the Midwest, we're pretty much going to be in that period of where you're going to be pretty much in temperature ranges like mid 60s for the afternoon, overnight lows in the low 40s. And again, that's normal for this time of the year. It's one of these things where once you get into the middle of October and you start to get highs in the upper 50s, highs in the lower 60s, that's kind of expected. But the bottom line is it still goes back to being above normal temperature wise in the middle part of the country. That's only because it gets stormy out west. So again, we're still going to see a period of warmer weather here, even though it's cooled off a little bit today. Much of the week, though, temperature is averaging above normal.
And here's the jet stream for today, and we can compare that to what's going to happen next week.
Yeah, so there's a jet stream actually for October 17th, which is today, and it shows you this real strong push of dry northwesterly flow into the middle of the Great Lakes and all the way down into the southeast. So they're finally getting their cool weather. And then you look at the next map, and all it really does is it kind of takes that ridge, pokes it up into central Canada. So the Northeast stays basically cool and dry. That huge trough that develops across Southern California is going to bring another potent area of low pressure and much, much more onshore flow. And anytime you get onshore flow this time of year in that area, you'll get some pretty decent rains. So it looks like they're going to get some very, very, again, beneficial rain to parts of California, Northern California this week. And by the end of next weekend or into early next week is when the rains are going to hit into Southern California. The good news, Mike and Peg, is they had some rains last week in Southern California, about an inch and a half. And what that does is it kind of compacts the soil. So even though you've had some dry weather in that area and some wildfires, the soil is compacted. So even if you do get another heavy rain event that comes in, it's not like you have this real dry soil that becomes, somewhat liquefied and you get these mudslides. So I don't see that happening. So the way the pattern is setting up, if you can get cyclical rains this time of the year, not only does it suppress the wildfires, it wets the soil down, compacts it, and in addition to that, eliminates any possibility for widespread mudslides. So not only are we talking about weather and climate here, but you're also talking about the impact of what happens at the end of a fire season. We're really kind of only getting into the beginning of the fire season, but I think there's going to be a fairly early end to the fire season this year due to the fact that the pattern's becoming a little bit more wetter and a little bit more cooler across the Pac Northwest into California.
All right, before we get to a forecast here, one thing you wrote, is it too early to talk about what's going to happen this winter? Well, there are a couple of maps here you sent me that I think folks will find interesting. This is an El Nino winter, and then we'll pop up the La Nina winter as well. So in El Nino here, what happens?
So typically with El Nino, what occurs is you get a warming of the ocean waters from about the dateline to about western South America, from about 5 degrees north to about 15 degrees south. And even if you're just 2 to 3 degrees above normal, that produces rising motion. It produces a much more convective nature to the equatorial Pacific. And as it does so, it puts a squeeze on the subtropical jet stream. And when a subtropical jet stream becomes a little bit more enhanced, obviously it has a better, it becomes a more efficient conduit from pulling in moisture off the Pacific Ocean. And because it's angled perpendicular into the mountains of Southern California, you generally tend to get wet and then more active storms across the Gulf Coast. So that's not what's going to happen this year. What's going to happen this year is a more La Nina event. And again, you can share those other graphics with your viewers if you want, but the waters of the Pacific Ocean have cooled off quite a bit from the equatorial region, from the dateline over to South America. So what that does is if it's cooler there, it relaxes the equatorial jet stream, and then the polar jet stream becomes more active. If that does occur, and if you also have the type of pattern that you can actually get some form of a link to the polar jet stream across North America, what will eventually occur is you'll have a better chance of getting some of these storms that move in from the northern plains to be more active, to have more moisture, to have more temperature contrast, and typically that leads to more snow and some more cold. So El Niños, only when they're really strong, become a direct impact on our weather here in the Midwest. So far, scale of 1 to 10, 1 being weak, 10 being strong. This is probably being pretty close to about a 7.5. But it's just that will do it. There's a couple of other factors that need to become involved. And right now, if the North Pacific jet stream becomes highly active with late season typhoons, we could be in for a rip-roaring ride in the month of November. I don't see that occurring at this point. So you almost have to go back and look at past events, from a 2 or 3 month standpoint to really get a handle on what the winter outlook is going to be. And I think I'll probably be more prepared to talk about that next week. Hard to do that on a golf course at this point.
Especially when the weather's so nice. And just stay right there. Don't move. Let's do a forecast, and then I can let you go.
Yeah. Well, first off, I think it's important to note that over the next 2 weeks is usually when we begin to see climatologically our first frost. I don't know if you shared this during your show earlier, but we had temperatures in the mid-30s. Joliet Airport hit 36, O'Hare 42, and the lakefront was like 45. That's normal for this time of the year for those areas in the western suburbs to get into your, mid-30s. But I do think we only have like maybe one chance next week, which would be either Friday or Sunday, that we could have a frost or a freeze. Outside of that, the next 2 weeks, I don't see anything like that happening. So we may be pushing our first frost or freeze until maybe Halloween. And if that system gets really, really energized in the desert Southwest, you can probably push that maybe into the first week of November. So bottom line, beautiful today, sunshine, 65 for high today. This is about as good as it gets for October. I mean, this is just perfect, which is why I'm out here and not inside. But low 70s, get that, low 70s for tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Yeah, it's amazing weather, Peg. Low 70s, overnight lows in the upper 40s. Great sleeping weather, no heat on, no air conditioning. And then the next chance of rain probably not until Wednesday night into Thursday. And even Thursday and Friday we'll have highs in the upper 50s, near 60s, which is okay. And you know what's interesting? Even if we get one of those systems where you get a wind off the lake, because the lake is so warm, you don't really get a cold lake breeze. So if we can get into at least the third week of October, still feeling somewhat September-like, again, that's bonus weather. I love every minute of it.
Get outside.
That's right.
Yeah, that's where I am. Yeah. And as I say that, can I give like an update for these guys hitting on the 9th hole? Can I do a little bit of Ken Venturi?
Did Jax find their golf balls yet?
Oh yeah. He's right here.
Do your Sir Nick Faldo, okay? That's what I want.
My goodness, he hit that too far. Boy, he's in the rough. He's really gonna have a hard time coming out of that.
Very nice.
I think I got to
be. You need to whisper as you're doing that.
Yeah, I actually got a little bit of a growl look from the guys up on the 9th hole. So I better be quiet. All right, with that, I'll say see you later, guys. I don't know where I'm going to be next week, but October is where is Rick DiMaio week, right?
I believe that's what it's been the whole time. So, all right, take care, Rick. We'll talk to you next week.
Fun.
See you guys.
And I don't know why that did that earlier today too. It's like I have no idea why things are happening like this, where I do a transition. Yep, show the pumpkin. I'm going to be carving pumpkins later on. Let's just get out of here, okay?
Woo! We're out of here.
We're out of here. I want to thank all of our great guests who are on the show today. That includes Renea Lyles from the UIC Nutrition Teaching Garden, Kyla Muhammad from her garden out in Bolingbrook, Vicki Rosich and Jean Arbetter from Imperial Towers Community Garden, meteorologist Rick DiMaio. Want to thank Kathleen running around upstairs and bringing bad news downstairs, and I want to thank our frogs and our birds. Yeah, and all of that. Until next time, go green or
go home.
Stadler?
Yeah, what?
Is that it?
Yes, it's over. How'd you like it?
I don't know. I slept through the whole thing.
Well, you didn't miss much.